All right, get ready to dive into some Korean news today.
Ooh, sounds interesting.
It seems you've got a transcript of a YouTube news video. Pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Covering global current events from, well, a bit of a different perspective, and we're going to try and unpack the most impactful bits for you.
Okay, cool.
So the first thing that really jumps out, well, it's the war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And some pretty shocking statements from former President Trump.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the news says he's actually claiming that Ukraine is responsible for starting the war.
Wow.
And criticizing Zelensky for not, being more open to negotiations with Russia.
Huh. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What's intriguing is that this aligns with the narrative that Russia's been pushing all along.
Yeah, exactly.
It really makes you wonder about the motivations behind those statements. And, how do they impact the sort of delicate balance of international relations?
Right.
The source also mentions that some European leaders are pretty concerned about Trump siding with Russia.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that could signify a growing rift in the Western alliance.
It's almost like, we're seeing the world kind of dividing into these camps again.
Yeah, you can see that.
And then, get this.
What?
The source also highlights Trump's alleged attempt to leverage U.S. military aid in exchange for access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals.
Oh, wow.
Those are really essential components for a lot of high-tech manufacturing.
Yeah, I know. That's a pretty crucial detail.
Yeah.
It suggests a kind of a transactional approach to foreign policy.
Right.
Putting economic interests, potentially personal ones, ahead of strategic alliances and humanitarian concerns. The source notes that Zelensky actually refused that deal.
He did.
Yeah, insisting on security guarantees instead of short-term economic benefits. This clash really highlights the kind of complex game of chess that's being played on the global stage right now.
Yeah.
With each move carrying a lot of weight.
It sounds like Ukraine is in a really, really tough spot.
Yeah, for sure.
Spot between these global power plays.
Definitely.
And then there's this really bold claim that the source makes, linking Trump's actions to Russia's potential interference in the U.S. election.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah.
It's important for you to remember, this is just one perspective, and to consider any potential biases.
Right.
While the source presents these claims as, connected, it's important to kind of critically analyze the information and not jump to conclusions.
Right. We can't just take things at face value.
Exactly.
We really need to dig deeper and look for the full picture.
Yeah.
Now, this news also raises concerns about the possibility of Trump and Putin striking a deal that completely excludes Ukraine and Europe. What do you make of that?
Well, such a deal would be incredibly concerning, to say the least.
Right.
It could create long-term instability.
Right.
Potentially, emboldening Russia and leaving other nations in the region feeling very vulnerable.
Yeah.
The source mentions the possibility of European peacekeeping forces being deployed to Ukraine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which could indicate a shift in their security strategy.
Yeah.
Maybe preparing for a future where they can't rely on the U.S. as a reliable partner anymore.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
And the human cost of this war is it's staggering.
Oh, I know.
The news reports over 860,000 Russian soldiers killed or injured.
Wow.
With an average of 1,300 casualties per day.
Those numbers they're a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of this conflict.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, these figures likely only represent a fraction of the total casualty.
Right.
Including, Ukrainian soldiers and civilians. It's a humanitarian crisis on a massive scale.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is.
And the source suggests that this war could end with Russia, annexing parts of Ukraine. Lich and those rare earth minerals we talked about earlier.
Yeah, right.
It paints a pretty grim picture of Ukraine's future.
Such an outcome would definitely reshape the geopolitical landscape.
Yeah.
It raises the question, would Russia be satisfied with just that territory?
Right.
Or would they have their sights set on, other resource-rich areas?
It's a good question.
The source speculates that Russia could target other former Soviet republics.
Oh, wow.
Which is, a very growing thought.
Yeah.
It highlights the potential for this conflict to escalate and spread, creating even more instability in the region.
Wow, so we've got potential backroom deals,
Yeah.
massive casualties,
Yeah.
and the possibility of the conflict widening.
It's a lot.
The stakes are, incredibly high.
For sure.
But this Korean news doesn't stop there.
Oh.
It also covers some major political upheaval happening in Brazil.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's going on?
The source details former Brazilian President Bolsonaro's legal troubles. Apparently, he's facing charges for allegedly attempting a coup after losing the 2022 election.
Wow.
Yeah. Does that sound familiar?
It definitely reminds me of what happened in the U.S. on January 6th.
Right.
It seems like we're seeing a trend of leaders refusing to accept defeat.
Yeah.
And resorting to undemocratic tactics.
It's a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
But here's the interesting thing.
What's that?
The source explains how the Brazilian courts are actually holding Bolsonaro accountable.
Oh, wow.
He's been barred from running for office for 8 years.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite a contrast to the situation in the U.S.
It really is. It really highlights the importance of strong institutions.
Right.
And a robust legal framework in safeguarding a democracy.
You're absolutely right.
The Brazilian example, it shows that accountability is possible, even when powerful figures try to subvert the will of the people.
That does give me a bit of hope.
Yeah.
It's good to know that democracy can fight back.
It can.
Now let's switch gears for a second and talk about economics.
Okay.
The source mentions some of Trump's controversial economic policies.
Like what?
Specifically, his proposed tariffs on things like cars, semiconductors, and even pharmaceuticals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Those kinds of tariffs could have some pretty serious consequences. They risk escalating inflation and could negatively impact global trade.
Yeah.
Protectionist policies often have unintended consequences. And in this case, it's likely consumers would bear the brunt of it.
Right.
Especially those who, rely on imported medications.
Yeah.
The source, really underscores those concerns.
Right.
Painting a potentially difficult economic picture.
It's a good reminder that these policies aren't just abstract ideas. They have a real impact on people's lives.
They do.
And speaking of people making waves, the source brings up Elon Musk's growing influence, both through his companies and his close relationship with Trump.
He's everywhere these days.
He really is.
Musk's role as a key advisor to Trump and his leadership in the Federal Efficiency Department are definitely worth noting.
Right.
He seems to be, using his entrepreneurial clout to shape government policy.
Yeah, exactly.
The source details Musk's plans to streamline government spending, but also mentions, pushback from Democrats and concerns about potential conflicts of interest.
Yeah, I mean, some people might be, skeptical about those motivations.
Oh, for sure.
And the news also touches on Musk's AI company, XAI.
Right.
And their new creation, Group 3.
Group 3.
Yeah, sounds pretty impressive.
It does.
But apparently, it'll cost you $40 a month to use it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This really underscores Musk's ambition to be at the forefront of technological advancement.
Right.
But it also raises questions about accessibility.
Right.
Will this advanced AI, will it be a tool that empowers everyone?
Yeah.
Or will it further concentrate power and resources in the hands of a select few?
That's a question worth considering.
It is.
And finally, the source reports on the bankruptcy of electric truck company Nikola.
Oh, no.
Yeah, attributing its downfall partly to Trump's rollback of green energy policies.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it is.
This bankruptcy is a stark example of how volatile emerging industries can be and how heavily they can be impacted by government policy.
Exactly.
The source's analysis paints a rather bleak picture for Nikola's future under a Trump administration.
Yeah.
And potentially for green energy innovation as a whole.
It's a tough break for a company trying to make a positive impact.
It really is.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
From war and political intrigue to economic policies and the rise of AI.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to process.
It is. It's important to remember that all these, seemingly disparate events, they're all interconnected. What happens in one part of the world can ripple outward and have unforeseen consequences elsewhere.
Absolutely.
This Korean news source, it really emphasizes that global perspective.
It's like that butterfly effect, right?
Exactly.
One small change can have a huge impact.
Yeah.
So
understanding these connections. It's crucial for navigating the complexities of the world today.
Right.
The situation in Ukraine, for instance.
Yeah.
It's not isolated.
Right.
It has ramifications for Europe, the U.S., and the global balance of power. Similarly, the actions of influential figures like Trump and Musk, they raise questions about the future of democracy, technology, and leadership itself.
For sure.
And all of this is happening against a backdrop of economic uncertainty, climate change, and social unrest.
It's a lot.
It can feel a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
It does. It really does.
Where do we even begin to make sense of it all?
It's true. I mean, the amount of information can feel like an avalanche.
It does.
But that's why, that's why it's so important to take a step back, analyze what we're seeing, and try to understand the underlying currents that are shaping these events.
You got it.
That's what we're trying to do here today.
Yeah.
This deep dive is about giving you, the listener, the tools and insights to understand these complex issues and engage with them in a meaningful way.
It's not just about, knowing what's happening.
Right.
It's about understanding why it matters and what it means for the future.
Exactly. Now, the source also touches on a rather bizarre incident.
What's that?
A Delta Airlines flight landing upside down in Toronto.
What? Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Thankfully, there are no fatalities.
That's good.
But it definitely raises some eyebrows.
I bet.
The source mentions that investigators are, looking into the cause, considering, things like mechanical failure.
Right. Pilot error or even extreme weather conditions.
Wow.
I have to admit, I'm always a bit nervous when I fly.
Me too.
And this story doesn't help.
No, it doesn't.
Hopefully they'll, figure out what happened and prevent it from happening again.
Yeah, I hope so.
Now, on a more serious note, the source also talks about Pope Francis's health.
Oh.
He's been hospitalized with pneumonia.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's concern about his condition.
I see.
Pope Francis is a significant figure on the world stage.
Yeah, he is.
Known for his, progressive views and his focus on social justice. So his health is a matter of concern, not just for Catholics, but for people of all faiths.
Yeah.
And those who, admire his leadership.
For sure.
It reminds us that even the most influential figures are still human.
Yeah, they are.
And vulnerable.
They are.
It does, and it also raises the question of, succession planning.
Oh, right.
Especially for institutions like the Catholic Church. Yeah. Which rely on a single leader. The source mentions that discussions are already underway about, choosing the next pope if necessary.
Oh, interesting.
That's a process steeped in tradition.
Oh, yeah.
And no doubt some political maneuvering as well.
I'm sure.
It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds if and when the time comes.
It will.
Indeed. And speaking of political decisions with far-reaching consequences, the source reports that the U.S. has started sending plane loads of undocumented immigrants to Panama.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty drastic measure.
It certainly is.
It reflects the ongoing tensions surrounding immigration in the U.S. It seems the Trump administration is taking a hardline approach.
Yeah.
Prioritizing, border security and deportation over more humane and sustainable solutions.
It's a complex issue, no doubt.
It is.
But sending people to another country without their consent, it raises all sorts of ethical and legal questions.
It does.
It's also a reminder of how interconnected the world is.
Right.
Decisions made in one country can have ripple effects across borders.
Right.
Impacting people's lives in unexpected ways.
Yeah, that's true.
It all comes back to that interconnectedness, doesn't it?
It does.
This deep dive is really highlighting how differently events can be perceived. Depending on your viewpoint, we're getting a glimpse into how a Korean-speaking audience is understanding and reacting to what's happening in the U.S. and around the world.
It's a valuable exercise in perspective taking.
I agree.
We need to be exposed to diverse viewpoints.
Right.
And challenge our own assumptions.
Absolutely.
That's the only way to truly grapple with the complexities of these global issues.
Now, let's talk about someone who seems to be embracing complexity.
Okay, who's that?
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Oh, okay.
The source mentions his ambitious plans to develop the Gaza Strip, complete with AI-generated images of what sounds like a futuristic oasis.
Wow.
Yeah, Netanyahu is certainly a controversial figure. Known for his strong stance on, on security and sometimes aggressive policies.
Right.
This vision for Gaza is... well, it's ambitious, to say the least.
It is.
It raises questions about its feasibility, the role of technology in conflict zones, and the potential impact on the Palestinian people.
That's a lot to consider.
It makes you think about the dual nature of technology, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
On one hand, it has the potential to transform lives for the better. On the other hand, it can be used to control, manipulate, and exacerbate existing inequalities.
That's a crucial point. It's up to us to ensure that technology serves humanity.
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Well said.
Thank you.
And speaking of technology, let's circle back to Elon Musk.
Okay.
The source reports that his AI company, XAI, has created a new language model called Group 3.
Group 3?
Yeah, apparently it's even more advanced than existing chatbots.
Wow.
But it comes with a hefty price tag.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Musk seems determined to lead the charge in the AI revolution.
Right.
But these advancements raise important questions.
Yeah.
About the future of work,
Mm-hmm.
the ethics of artificial intelligence,
Right.
and the potential for both progress and disruption.
It feels like we're standing on the edge of a new era.
Yeah.
Where the line between human and machine is becoming increasingly blurred.
Yeah, it does.
It's exciting and a little bit unnerving.
I know.
All at the same time.
It is.
Now, shifting gears for a moment.
Okay.
The source mentions some extreme weather events in South America.
Really?
Yeah, with Brazil experiencing its hottest temperatures in a decade.
Wow.
Yeah.
This heat wave is a stark reminder of the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, likely linked to climate change.
Right.
It's a global issue with consequences that reach every corner of the planet.
Yeah.
From agriculture and infrastructure to public health and migration patterns.
It's one of those issues that can feel overwhelming.
Yeah, it does.
But we can't afford to ignore it.
We can't.
We need to face the problem head on,
Yeah.
understand its causes, and work together to find solutions.
Absolutely.
The future of our planet depends on it.
It does.
Now let's talk about a country facing both economic and environmental challenges.
Okay.
Argentina.
Okay.
The source reports that President Milei
Mm-hmm.
is facing calls for impeachment
Oh, wow.
after promoting a cryptocurrency that crashed spectacularly.
Yikes.
Yeah.
This situation highlights the volatility of the cryptocurrency market
Right.
and the risks involved in, investing in digital assets.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that not all investments are created equal,
Mm-hmm.
and thorough research is essential before putting your money at risk.
Yeah.
It also raises questions about the role of government in regulating these emerging markets.
Right. Exactly.
Should leaders be endorsing specific investments?
Yeah.
Especially, ones as speculative as cryptocurrency?
It's a complex issue.
It is.
Governments want to encourage innovation and economic growth,
Right.
but they also have a responsibility to protect consumers from fraud and reckless speculation.
Right.
Finding that balance is key.
It is.
Speaking of economic uncertainty,
Oh.
the source also reports that U.S. stock markets are down, partly due to Trump's announcement of new tariffs on cars, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals.
Oh, wow.
Sounds like we might be heading towards another trade war.
Yeah, it does. Those protectionist policies, they often backfire.
Right.
They can lead to higher prices for consumers.
Yeah.
And retaliatory measures from other countries.
Right.
It's a reminder that in our, interconnected global economy, cooperation is essential. When one country tries to go it alone, everyone ends up paying the price.
It's a bit like a game of Jenga, isn't it? Pull out the wrong piece and the whole tower comes crashing down.
Exactly.
We need to be mindful of the interconnectedness of the global economy and work together to create a more stable and sustainable system.
For sure.
All right, we're running a little short on time,
There.
but I want to touch on one last topic before we wrap up.
All right.
The source mentions the bankruptcy of electric truck company Nikola. Yeah, attributing it partly to Trump's rollback of green energy policies.
Oh, that's a setback for the electric vehicle industry.
Yes.
And a sign that government support is crucial.
Yeah.
For transitioning to a cleaner and more sustainable energy future.
It's a reminder that political decisions have real-world consequences.
Yeah, they do.
And in this case, those consequences could be detrimental to both the environment and the economy.
That's true.
It certainly highlights the need for leaders who prioritize environmental sustainability and are willing to invest in forward-thinking technologies.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything from this Korean news piece.
Yeah, we have.
We've journeyed from war and political scandals to economic turmoil and the rise of AI.
It's been quite a ride.
It has.
But hopefully a thought-provoking one.
Definitely. We've gained some valuable insights into what's happening globally, explored different perspectives, and hopefully ignited some new ideas and questions in your mind.
Yeah.
So before we sign off, what's your final takeaway for our listeners?
I'd say this. Never stop questioning, never stop learning, and never underestimate your own power to make a difference. The world is in constant flux, and it's up to all of us to stay engaged, informed, and involved in shaping the future we want to see.
Beautifully put.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been fun.
We hope you've enjoyed the journey.
I have.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep.
See you next time. The parallels are they're really striking.
Yeah.
The source points out how Bolsonaro, like Trump, made claims of election fraud and tried to undermine democratic processes.
Yeah.
It raises concerns about the spread of these anti-democratic movements on a global scale and what it means for the future of democratic institutions.
It's a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
But here's the interesting thing.
What's that?
The source explains how the Brazilian courts are actually holding Bolsonaro accountable.
Oh, wow. So they're actually doing something.
Yeah, he's been barred from running for office for 8 years.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite a contrast to the situation in the U.S., wouldn't you say?
It really is. It really highlights the importance of strong institutions,
right,
and a robust legal framework for safeguarding a democracy.
You're absolutely right.
The Brazilian example, it shows that accountability is possible,
right?
Even when powerful figures try to subvert the will of the people.
That does give me a bit of hope,
Yeah, me too.
It's good to know that democracy can fight back.
It can. It definitely can.
Now, let's switch gears for a second to talk about economics.
Right.
The source mentions some of Trump's controversial economic policies.
Okay, like what?
Specifically his proposed tariffs on things like cars, semiconductors, even pharmaceuticals.
Those kinds of tariffs, I mean, they could have some serious consequences.
Right.
They risk escalating inflation.
Yeah.
And could negatively impact global trade.
I mean, we've seen that before.
Right. Protectionist policies, they often have, unintended consequences.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's likely that consumers would bear the brunt of it.
Right.
Especially those who rely on imported medications.
That's a good point.
The source, really underscores those concerns to paint a potentially, difficult economic picture.
It's a good reminder that these policies aren't just, abstract ideas.
Yeah.
They have a real impact on people's lives.
Oh, they do. They absolutely do.
And speaking of people making wave, the source bringing up Elon Musk's, growing influence.
Oh yeah, he's everywhere these days.
He really is, both through his companies and his close relationship with Trump.
Yeah, that's a powerful combination.
It is. It really is.
Musk's role as a key advisor to Trump,
right,
and his leadership in the Federal Efficiency Department are definitely worth noting, I think.
They are.
He seems to be using his his entrepreneurial clout to shape government policy.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that, yeah.
The source details Musk's plans to streamline government spending.
Yeah, I saw that.
But it also mentions, pushback from Democrats and concerns about potential conflicts of interest.
Right. I mean, some people might be skeptical about those motivations.
Oh, for sure.
And the news also touches on Musk's AI company.
Right, XAI.
Yeah, and their new creation.
Coup 3, right? What's that?
Yeah, it sounds pretty impressive.
It does.
But apparently it'll cost you $40 a month to use it.
Oh, wow. So it's not exactly accessible to everyone.
Right.
This underscores Musk's ambition to be at the forefront of technological advancement,
Right.
But it also raises questions about, accessibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Will this advanced AI be a tool that, empowers everyone?
Right.
Or will it further concentrate power and resources in the hands of a select few?
That's a really good question.
It is.
And finally, the source reports on the bankruptcy of electric truck company Nikola.
Oh, no, not Nikola. That's too bad.
Attributing its downfall partly to Trump's rollback of green energy policies.
That's a real setback for the electric vehicle industry.
Yeah, it is.
And a sign that government support is crucial. For transitioning to a cleaner and more sustainable energy future.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's a reminder that political decisions, they have real-world consequences.
They do.
And in this case, those consequences could be detrimental to both the environment and the economy.
It really highlights the need for leaders who prioritize environmental sustainability.
For sure.
And are willing to, invest in forward-thinking technologies.
Yeah, we need more of those.
We do. We definitely do. So we've covered a lot of ground here, haven't we?
We have. It's been quite a journey.
From war and political scandals to economic turmoil and the rise of AI.
And everything in between.
It's a lot to process, to be honest.
It is, but hopefully it's been, a thought-provoking one.
I think it has.
It's important to remember that all these seemingly disparate events, They're all interconnected.
Right. What happens in one part of the world can have ripple effects, elsewhere.
Exactly. And this Korean news source, it really emphasizes that global perspective.
It's like that butterfly effect, right? One small change can have a huge impact somewhere else.
It really can.
And so understanding these connections, it's crucial for navigating the complexities of the world today.
It is. It really is.
The situation in Ukraine, for instance.
Yeah.
It's not isolated.
Right.
It has ramifications for Europe, the U.S., and the global balance of power.
Absolutely. And similarly, the actions of influential figures like Trump and Musk.
Right.
They raise questions about the future of democracy, technology, and leadership itself.
Yeah, and all of this is happening against a backdrop of economic uncertainty, climate change, social unrest.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot to grapple with, for sure.
It can feel a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
It can.
Where do we even begin to make sense of it all?
Right. The amount of information can feel like an avalanche sometimes.
It really can.
But that's why it's so important to, to take a step back,
Yeah.
analyze what we're seeing, and try to understand the underlying currents that are shaking these events.
You got it.
That's what we're trying to do here today with this deep dive.
Yeah.
It's about giving you, the listener, the tools and the insights to understand these complex issues and engage with them in a meaningful way.
It's not just about knowing what's happening,
Right.
It's about understanding why it matters and what it means for the future.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So hopefully we've done that today.
I think so.
It's a lot to cover, but it's important stuff.
It is. It really is.
So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed the journey and learned something along the way.
I know I have. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.